Welcome to the third part of my challenge, where I try to beat Plants vs Zombies 2 with only fire plants. In this part, I'll beat the final 3 worlds of our time adventure with our fellow fire buddies. So, if you haven't watched the first 2 parts of the series, I highly recommend you do it. Without further ado, let's continue our fiery challenge. The time has finally come to try the primal power, my fellow ice cubes, because we are moving to the Jurassic Marsh. A world full of dangerous dinosaurs and powerful zombies is waiting for us. It is the 9th world of our time adventure and yet another hope to find Dave's Taco. Today we will have a unique chance to turn plants into cobblestones. Without further ado, let's try to search for a delicious taco in prehistory. Alert, user Dave, my sensors indicate we have moved millions of years into the past. Yubbers, that's before I was even born. Correct, we seem to have landed in some form of Jurassic Marsh. I knew I smelled more oxygen. So we've come to the point where everything will turn into survival games, as Jurassic Marsh isn't about strategy, it's about a massive zombie spam combined with annoying dinosaurs that nothing and no one can stop, since fire plants didn't compete in frying prehistoric lizards. Anyway, let's get back to the day 1, where everything went wrong right after the first wave, as fossil-head zombies had already appeared on my lawn. Oh, and the best part of that all is that I didn't have enough plant foods to get some more peppermints, which resulted in losing some lawnmowers. However, the pepper rain has solved all the problems and the level was successfully completed. Day 2 was the first level on which dinosaurs appeared, meaning that the pepper pult was not an option here, since Raptor didn't care about its existence. If you think that Wasabi Whip was a good choice for such a level, then your expectations are too high, because fossil heads are big fans of wasabi slabs. So the only option that is left for me is to survive this mess for as long as possible. As you may see, we ended up this level without a single wasabi whip, but with the same positions we had on the previous level. I count that as a victory. Day 3 was a conveyor belt level which attempted to combine some uncombinable plants and make them a great combo. Excuse me, but eating garlic after gulping a delicious watermelon isn't the best idea, especially since grape shot is also a major option here. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of that conveyor belt level, so we are moving to the next one. On day 4, I finally tried to build a proper defense line by setting all the plants closer to the lawnmowers and leaving some free space for jack-o'-lanterns. This strategy worked much better than expected, but the sun deficit was still a significant problem, as all the plants were too expensive to be planted frequently. However, I didn't lose a single lawnmower, which is already an achievement for me. On day 5, I decided to use the meteor flower, which perfectly fits with the Jurassic Marsh. Honestly, if I didn't know that meteor flower is Acidium, I would consider it a new plant for this world, since its idea and design perfectly match everything that is happening in this world, especially when you realize that Jurassic Marsh has ended up with a meteor that fell on the Earth. What a cool reference it could be. On day 6, I found nothing better than planting a whole row of infernos, since a new dinosaur appeared on this level, and that isn't a good sign for us. Fortunately, everything went pretty fine, as Inferno is an ultimate weapon against the prehistoric zombies, but I still miss the Snow Pea and its stolen ability. Day 7 was yet another conveyor belt level on which nothing special had happened, since my cobblestones were able to protect everyone from a massive zombie spam. In my opinion, the level would be much more enjoyable if only it contained some stunning icy plants. Day 8 was an average one, because nothing special had happened during this level. Like on some previous levels, I used Wasabi Whip to stop the zombie attack, and when something went wrong, I added lava guava, plant food, jalapeno or peppermint, which allowed me not only to save all my lawnmowers, but also to ensure that my brains were secured. Oh, and Wasabi Whip was doing his best to fry the zombies like a spicy snack. Day 9 was an absolute banger, since numerous dinosaurs have fallen in love with me. I'm not kidding. They were staying alongside cobblestones and kicking out all the zombies who thought that they were friends with lizards. This is yet another level that didn't contain any fire plants, but why should I skip them if I want to tell you something about them? Day 10 provided a good explanation of why shouldn't I use a hot date in the context of the Jurassic Marsh realities. Here, not all the zombies come to your trap from the beginning of the lane, and sometimes it can lead to significant troubles, so I would suggest having an extra peppermint for such a case. However, the situation is still better than it was at the beginning of the journey, which makes me feel a bit more relaxed. Guys, I'm sorry for lying you about the hot date, as day 11 proved me that it's a very useful plant, and I only have to find the proper way to use it. The other part of it was the meteor flower, which showed itself at its best, since the meteor shower combined with the attractions of the hot date is an absolute match. If you can't stop the zombie horde using some traditional ways, then you need to find a new one. I thought that day 12 would be much harder since the primal gargantuar appeared on the level and I couldn't lose more than 6 plants, which is a good obstacle in my case. Of course, nothing and no one except for Inferno could stop such a massive zombie attack, which included the toughest gargantuar in the game. If regular Garg has 3600 HP, the Jurassic Gargantuar has 5400 HP, which is 33% higher than an average one. Like I said, it's not an okay world. Day 13 became the first day of survival games in Jurassic Marsh, since the level's pace became insanely fast, so the only option I left with was dealing with zombies as fast as possible to provoke the subsequent waves to finish them with the help of the lawnmowers or peppermint. The sun deficit is now more than just a lack of sun, it's my sentence to make the gameplay as hard as possible. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare anything for day 14, which means that we are skipping it, since no fire plants had appeared on that level. On day 15, the meteor shower had escalated to the level where it could take down all the zombies that were still staying on the lane. It became possible because lots of tough zombies appeared on that level and most of them are not beatable with only peppermint, so meteor shower had to deal with everyone who survived the massive plant attack. Oh, and take a look at my cobblestone Johnnies! I spent 2 plant foods to turn cobblestones into obsidian. What a great Minecraft reference. Wait, did this Garg drop a meteor? We should take a look at it. Look, Penny, a fresh star honky. A meteorite. Curious. My records indicate this should be bigger. Bigger? Like super burrito sized? More like super Seattle sized. I hope history has not gone awry. Surrender your brains for this, inane time stumblers. Else you shall share the fate of these terrible thunder lizards. Extinction! But I don't want to get extinct. Dinosaurs were thinking the same, Crazy Dave. Day 16 was an absolute mess and one of my least favorite conveyor belt levels in the game. It's not about strategy or thinking in the right way to beat the level. It's not even about hardness, it's just a massive zombie spam where you don't have enough tools to deal with them all, so you have to survive it somehow and go to the next level. For the past year, I beat this world 3 times or even 4 times, and I can say that my opinion of it didn't change at all, because Jurassic Marsh isn't a good world. If Neon Mixtape Tour and Big Wave Beach have a necessary hardness that makes the gameplay both harder and more exciting, the same can be said about the Jurassic Marsh. It's just about a zombie spam combined with the overpowered mechanics of dinosaurs. That's all I can say about it. I can't explain that, but day 17 felt much easier than day 1 of the Jurassic Marsh. It's hard for me to understand that, but I suggest that's because of the meteor flowers, which were capable of holding the zombie attack, unlike the pepper pults, which were failing the first level like noobs. On the other hand, we faced the same zombies on each level, with the only difference being their number. What do you guys think about it? Please let me know in the comments below. Day 18 was yet another survival games level, which I beat like a pro by using some missing plants combined with a hot date. I couldn't imagine dealing with all the zombies you see on the screen without a sugary flavor of this guy. Oh, and take a look at the final wave, and then tell me that it's a normal world and nothing wrong is happening on my lawn. Mr. Floppa wouldn't approve such a world. Day 19 was a conveyor belt level without any fire plants, so that's a good chance to tell you something interesting. Did you know that called Snapdragon was one of the first broken plants added to PvZ 2? Before the addition of Jurassic Marsh into the game, the premium plants were kinda balanced, but Grapeshot with called Snapdragon have changed everything, and since then, lots of broken plants have been added into Plants vs Zombies 2. On day 20, I had to produce 2000 suns, and that was a fantastic chance to play with some classical fire plants for the first time since day 1. Not everything went perfectly while beating it, but that was an amazing experience, as I finally played with some other fire plants except for Inferno, Wasabi Whip or Meteor Flower. 11 floppas out of 10. Day 21 is the definition of why Jurassic Marsh is a bad world, since not even the Inferno is capable of holding such a massive zombie attack combined with enormous abilities of flying lizards. When PopCap developers thought about this world, did they feel that adding a pumpkin would be necessary to play this world properly? How am I supposed to deal with all the zombies at the back of the lawn? Using Split Pea? They can't be serious about it. Day 22 was the first Last Stand level on which I combined classical fire plants together with Jack-o'-lantern, so no one could get close to the fire plants and consume them. Everything went like I wanted, since Peppermint did its job pretty well by boosting Pepper Pult together with Fire Pea, creating a gigantic blue piece. Wait, did anyone pee in the pool? Day 23 is yet another definition of a bad level, since I couldn't even understand what was happening on my lawn and why everyone was moving so fast. Like, take a look at those imps. I didn't speed up this footage, so that's the real speed in the game. At one point, I was really close to failing it, but luckily I had the necessary amount of suns to stop them all and move to the next level. Day 24 and I don't even know what to say about it. Like, seriously, how am I supposed to deal with all of them without the peppermint and the lawnmowers? Every time I enter a new level, a new trash starts to happen on my lawn, and it all came to the point where it's hard to say something new about everything you see on your screens, because it's just the same as it was before. I somehow managed to stop it, but it doesn't give me a good feeling, since it's not a type of game that I like. If you think that day 24 was an absolute trash, then you should think twice, Michael. Day 25 introduced us to Ankylosaurus, which delivers the zombies right to your lawnmowers, so you shouldn't worry about using them. I want to ask you this question once again. How am I supposed to stop it? When I played with only shrooms and ice plants, I always had a chance to use Cold Snap or Ice Shroom, but this time I left one by one with all of them, without a possibility to stall at least someone. As you may see, the only thing I was doing for the entire level was placing instant plants and saving plant foods for the peppermint. Yeah, it's technically possible to beat these levels with only fire plants, but at what cost? Day 26 is an absolute, it's the peak of absurdity. Ain't no way someone likes it, because I don't see a single reason to enjoy such a level with a hilarious amount of dinosaurs, restrictions, and what's even worse, powerful zombies. I beat it from the very first attempt, but that's not even funny to talk about. Let's move to the next one. Day 27 was my epic revenge, since I was finally able to hold the enormous zombie attack without losing a single plant or lawnmower. This level was beaten in 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I believe that it's possible to be done in less than a minute if you place some overpowered plants on the first tiles. If you manage to do that, please let me know in the comments below. Day 28 wasn't as bad as some of the previous levels, but I can't call it a good one. Thanks to the flying lizard from a final wave, I managed to save an additional lawnmower, meaning that dinosaurs are not always playing on the side of zombies. On day 29, we had to survive the zombie attack with the given plants, so I suggest skipping it as it didn't contain any fire plants. Everything was going fine at the beginning of day 30 up until the third wave, when I had to dig up my meteor flowers only to get some more suns. I was pretty close to failing the level since the lack of sun felt pretty much here, especially at the end of the level where I had to deal with a massive number of zombies. Fortunately, I attracted the primal Garg on the lane with a lone mover, which allowed me to focus my attention on the zombies on the upper lanes. The level was successfully completed, and I consider it a huge victory, comrades. Day 31 didn't contain any fiery plants, but only primal and cold ones. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare anything interesting for it, since all my emotions were spent on some previous levels, so now you can enjoy a few more seconds of footage of this level, and then we will move to the final one. Day 32 didn't contain any fiery plants, so it was just a usual battle with Dr. Zombies that lasted for 5 minutes. I detect an incoming meteor, user Dave. I advise immediate egress from this time zone. Bye bye dinos, you will be birdies in no time. Anyway, the key is mine, which means that we are moving to the big wave beach. Another 32 levels are waiting for us, but this time with lots of peppers and challenging days. Here comes one of the best parts of our time adventure, my fellow ice cubes, because we are moving to the big wave beach. A world full of dangerous Squidwards and annoying waves is waiting for us. It is the 10th world of our time adventure and yet another hope to find Dave's Taco. Today we will throw lots of fiery peppers only to stop the underwater zombies from getting close to my brains. Without further ado, let's fire everything up. Look at this beautiful beach. It's got everything a growing plant needs. Sun, sand and lots of water. Caution, user Dave. My sensors indicate there are zombies on your beach. And far too much water. It will overwhelm the plants. No problemo. We will just lay down some lily pads. No crazy Dave, we won't. It's not a fire plant. Beating the big wave beach without lily pads sounds good enough. Mr. Floppa approves it. Alright, so day 1 is always the best one, since you don't need to act much to complete it. However, in the case of the big wave beach, you should always put some effort into beating the level, as bucket heads with cone heads won't disappear without a good plant reply. In my case, I was even able to plant a few snapdragons, which hadn't been seen since Pirates or Wild West. The final wave was good enough as there was no zombie spam, but only the necessary hardness. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the big wave beach. On day 2, the water waves were coming closer with each of the zombies' attack, so the proper way to deal with them was to use the wasabi whip, as it's capable of dealing with all kinds of zombies, including the bucket heads. However, even wasabi whip isn't the best possible fire plant for the big wave beach, so we should search for a better one. Yet the level was successfully completed and none of the zombies came close to my sandy beach. Day 3 is an amazing conveyor belt level which is fully dedicated to chompers and pea shooters. Yeah, it didn't contain any fire plants, but I really enjoyed beating that level since chomper is one of my favorite plants in PvZ2. Bro is a real vacuum cleaner. On day 4, I discovered that meteor flower isn't capable of hitting the water tiles, which makes it somewhat useless in this world. However, it's not a reason to abandon it, since no one except the fire flower can target zombies at any point on the lawn. Furthermore, the meteor shower after the second wave was a great answer to the question of its usability. This dude is very good. Day 5 was yet another conveyor belt level dedicated to Johnny and Pea Shooter together with Tanglekelp. You know what? These guys are tough enough to stop a massive zombie spam and even take some bucket heads to the bottom of the ocean. Now we know who lives in the pineapple under the sea. It's a buckethead zombie. On day 6, I had only 2 available seed slots as most of the plants had been pre-picked for me. I didn't want to risk in such a case, so I decided to pick a fire flower just as usual, which turned out to be a huge catastrophe, since it's not capable of dealing with snorkel zombies while they are in the water. Houston, we've got some big troubles. As a result, they came onto my lawn and consumed some of the meteor flowers, but luckily the remaining flowers were able to stop them and none of the lawn mowers were lost in the process. However, I was really close to losing one of them. Day 7 was a tough one since we had no safe plants to put the plants, and the existing lily pads were everything we had. Nonetheless, even such restrictions couldn't stop me from reaching my goals. One of the things that has incredibly boosted my mood was the hot date, since the sweet guy can attract the snorkels and then fire them up. Don't you still believe that hot date is flamingly good? Because he really is. Day 8 was a bowling bulb level, so there's a good chance to tell you an interesting fact about bowling. Did you know that over 67 million people in the United States bowl every year? If we put it into perspective, every 5th US citizens play bowling at least once a year. The last time I played bowling was probably in 2018 or 2019, as the only place where you could play it in my city has closed. On day 9, I have finally placed the lots of pepper pools, which were frying snorkels like KFC chickens and the Wild West. Of course, even the hot peppers are unable to hold these zombie attacks on their own, so that's why the peppermint is essential for beating almost every level at that stage. In case of something goes wrong, I always have lava guava to fix it. 13 chocolate flopas out of 10. On day 10, my bowling bulbs were hitting the zombies like real professionals, so nothing and no one could stop them from shooting the bulbs. A famous pea shooter also took part in this battle, but he was acting more like a support guy rather than the main attacker. Even though this level didn't contain any fire plants, I still enjoyed beating every second of it. Day 11 was the level where problems started appearing out of nowhere. I can't say that the level itself was challenging, but the appearance of the surfer zombie made things much worse than they could be, since the pepper pool isn't the best choice to defeat the surfboards. I wouldn't trust it to defeat such an enemy. Day 12 was the first last stand level of the big wave beach, and the first time I used Inferno in this world. Even though it doesn't attack snorkels, the Inferno is still capable of holding a massive horde at the back of the lawn, so no one would even try to bite my fire plants. Thanks to a good waterline, the snorkel zombies were unable to get a step closer to my lawnmowers, so it was one of the few levels where I saved all of them. Even though I had to gather 2000 suns on day 13, the level itself was amazing, as I had only one lane where I could place my fire plants together with sunshrooms. Unexpectedly, the hot date became my main savior from all kinds of zombies, including the snorkels. It allowed me to obtain some plant foods, which increased the number of lily pads, thereby giving me the perfect opportunity to expand the number of plants on the lawn. Day 14 was a good one, as it allowed me to play with my lovely chomper once again. This time I planted a complex defense line, which included a lane of bowling bulbs, together with a lane of chompers and Johnnies. The latter was getting all the damage from the zombie bites, so we should appreciate Johnny for doing such a hard work. Day 15 wasn't as hard as I expected it to be, since there was no fisherman zombie to catch my potato mines. What about the rest of the zombies? They weren't capable of reaching exploding bodies, since hot date attracted them with its sweet taste. Delicious. However, it all worked only until the first wave, when the situation got out of control, so I had to find another way to make it. Fortunately, the Inferno was so fast that we didn't get too stuck with the same problems we faced before, and the level was successfully completed. Wow, it looks like a bingo. We should take a look at it. Look, it must be time to play Beach Zombie Bango. Bingo, user Dave, it's bingo. You already won, Penny? Wow, you are good at this. On the other hand, where else would you see Chompy right next to a brain? Day 16 used to be one of the hardest conveyor belt levels in the game, on which we all spent numerous hours trying to beat it without using power-ups. After all, I miss the good old day of day 16 of the Big Wave Beach, as it was a real challenge that only a few players could complete. You can still find numerous videos on YouTube where people attempt to finish it without any additional help. If you are one of the people who remember this level as it used to be, please let me know in the comments below so we can discuss it. What I found is that day 17 is usually much easier than day 1, and I can explain this phenomenon. The only theory in my head suggests that I expect too much from day 17 and too little from day 1. However, I was terrified of Squidward, so I didn't let him enter my lawn and spread annoying squids on my plants. Not this time, buddy. Day 18 featured one of my favorite plants in PvZ2, which is the crocodile. Even though a little crocodile isn't as tough as Bowling Bulb, he is still capable of holding the zombie horde and even defeating a deep sea gargantuar, which I found to be necessary to state that the plant is good enough to be used at that stage. 14 alligators out of 10 crocodiles. On day 19, I had only 3 available seed slots, on which I picked only the most necessary plants to beat the level, as each mistake would cost me an extra 650 coins to unlock an additional seed slot. The level itself was mediocre, as there was no significant threat to my fire flowers, which were capable of meteoring everyone around, and even the snorkels. That's what I call the power of a full lane of meteors. Day 20 was more of a survival game rather than a serious level, as I had to dig up all of my pepper pools because of the Octoman, who was obsessed with the idea of throwing Squidwards on my wedges. Don't try to do the same at home, I warned you. The rest of the level was fine, and I almost defeated a deep sea gargantuar at the end of it, but the luck was on its side. Finally, we've got to the point where Iceberg was a key player on the level. Day 21 was entirely dedicated to me, and I did my best to stop the surfboards from defeating the Homing Thistle, which is my friend I guess. Even though I was surrounded by broken surfboards, it didn't stop me from freezing all the zombies you see on the lawn and the one that is behind it. Day 22 introduced us to a fisherman zombie, one of the most formidable enemies we've faced on this challenge. While most zombies that people consider bad can easily be countered by Inferno or Meteor Flower, the same can be said about the fisherman, as he doesn't move, and he is too far away from the main spots on the lawn, on which 90% of the damage is inflicted. Therefore, we should better stay away from such a dangerous enemy and deal with him as fast as possible. I spent over half an hour trying to defend my bananas on day 23, as Fisherman Zombie was pulling them out from a safe zone, which is only one tile ahead of their plant point. The main problem at this level is the lack of sun, which limits me from placing fire plants directly in front of bananas. However, once I learned the locations of all the zombies, I finally managed to protect the bananas and complete the level. Day 24 was yet another bowling level, so that's a good chance to tell you something interesting about this game. Did you know that Japan is home to the world's largest bowling alley with 116 lanes? Honestly, I can't imagine a building where it was constructed, as so many lanes require a gigantic space, along with mechanics and thousands of balls. On day 25, I fried numerous zombies in so many different ways, but my favorite method included Hot Date, which attracted all the zombies from nearby lanes and then jalapenoed them. However, the Meteor Flower also deserves your attention, as it is an effective way to get rid of zombies at any place you want. Just make sure to feed those guys with a plant food or boost them with a peppermint. Day 26 was a conveyor belt level dedicated to Johnnies and bananas, so there's a good chance to tell you something interesting about the latter one. Did you know that the scientific name of the banana means the fruit of the wise man? Its scientific name in Latin is Musa sapientum, which translates to a phrase you heard previously. So if you want to become wise, you should start eating more bananas, as they are a great source of carbohydrates and fiber. I've got nothing to say about day 27, as it resembles some of the previous levels and features the same problems we faced before. If I could find something interesting about it, I would surely tell you. Day 28 used to be a pure nightmare fuel for old players of PvZ2, as there was only one proper way to beat it without using power-ups or any additional plant foods, and that solution was the Infinite. However, in 2025, this level is as easy as baking a potato, so nothing special can be said about it. While the Big Wave Beach is now much easier than Jurassic Marsh, and that's not an exaggeration. Day 29 was fine, since I combined a Meteor Flower with Pepper Pulled, which countered all the enemies we faced on this level. Fortunately, we had enough sun to prepare a good defense line, so the number of plants placed on the lawn was high enough to deal with all the zombies, including a deep-sea gargantuar which couldn't stand the massive artillery shell. Oh no, we've got to this point. Day 30. Well, that's a pure nightmare fuel for me, as I spent over an hour searching for a way to complete it. As you may have noticed, we had to defend the crocodiles. It may sound easy when you first hear it, but remember that fisherman needs only one shot to trigger it, and thus ruin the level. I got to the point where I learned each and every zombie that appears on the level and the amount of plant foods I get while beating it, as they are essential to deal with fishermen, as these zombies requires 2 peppermints to be immediately defeated. I still can't believe that I did it, as it was the hardest level I faced in this challenge. If you want to understand how challenging it is, try it on your own and remember all the combinations that make it possible to be beaten with only 5 plants. I was really proud of myself after finishing it, as I didn't give up after numerous failures. Good job, Michael. Day 31 was a good level of the Big Wave Beach, which felt like a relaxation after a crazy day 30, which took all the power I had, so the current level was seen by me as an opportunity to enjoy playing PvZ 2 once again and think about the beauty of Big Wave Beach, as I find this world a true masterpiece. There is nothing better in this life than expressing your feelings after playing PvZ 2 levels and describing them as something fundamental, like writing a poem or novel. Day 32 is my favorite battle with Dr. Zombies, as it included all my favorite plants and it lasted for only 5 minutes, which is way more than enough for a battle with zombies. Well, the key is mine, which means that we are moving to the modern day. Another 34 levels are waiting for us, but this time with time portals and a delicious taco in a waffle. The time has finally come for a final battle between zombies and fire, my fellow ice cubes, because we are moving to the modern day. A world full of temporary zombies and mysterious shadow plants is waiting for us. It is the 11th and the final world of our time adventure and the very last hope to find Dave's taco. Today we're going to fry the modern zombies like a barbecue in the backyard, using all the fire plants to stop the massive attack from 2010. Without further ado, let's get our taco back. Project Paradox begins now. Timeline alert, user Dave. We have arrived moments before our departure. If my guess is correct, Dr. Zombies will attempt to prevent your initial taco consumption. Our journey will cease to exist. No. Oh, sorry, I was busy screaming no. Did you say taco? We must beware, user Dave. Dr. Zombies will surely deploy all his time-varied zombies. Taco! As you may see, Crazy Dave needs only one scene, and he doesn't care about anything else. However, let's get back to our time adventure. Day 1 is always my favorite one, as it is an excellent opportunity to understand what is going on in this universe and what type of challenge we will face today. This time the first level of a new world was severe, as it's hard to imagine it without the peppermint, which played a key role in beating the level, as pepper pools were not able to stop Popka the parrot, and the rest of the zombies as well, let alone those who came from the portals. Even though the final wave was crazy because of the mecha football zombie and the rest of the bodies who came from the future, we managed to burn them all and complete the level with only a single remaining lawnmower. Sounds like a huge success. If you thought that day 1 was crazy, take a look at day 2, which already includes a gargantuar. Well, it's a typical situation for this world, so don't be surprised by it. This time I didn't want to finish the level with only a single lawnmower, so I picked a meteor flower as my main plant against the zombie horde. Guess what? It was a brilliant choice. The meteor shower, combined with a lane of lava, is one of the most efficient ways to defeat the zombies, especially when you add a peppermint to this combo. The ancient Garg was genuinely shocked by its effectiveness. Day 3 was a conveyor belt level which included my lovely Snapdragon. However, it's unbeatable with only that plant, as Newspaper Zombie is a big fan of speedrunning the levels. That's why I had to use some other plants like Endurian and Lightning Reed to stop it. I'm not a big fan of this level as it seems to be pretty much boring to me, so we are moving to the next one. On day 4, I repeated the strategy from day 2, as it seems to be a working solution for an early stage of the modern day. Some of you might know that this level contains an Imp Dragon, which is immune to any fire plant and its fire attack. So, is that the end of our challenge? Of course it's not. I was thinking about its appearance a long time before we entered this stage, so I have already prepared a few strategies for defeating an Imp Dragon, and the first one included a hot date. The idea was simple. I would attract all the imps to one lane and then the lone movers would finish them off. Then the same steps will be repeated with the other lanes and boom, the level is completed. You know what? Everything was going just like I predicted, and at the end of the level I made another 200 IQ moments by attracting the zombies to the lane where imps would activate the lone mover in a few seconds. I was surely cooking this level. Day 5 included lots of annoying zombies, from fast-moving imps to newspaper zombies, which are currently the main threats to my lone movers, as they move so fast that not even the meteor flower can catch them with its artillery shot. The rest of the level was fine, but I still can't get the point of including Gargs in every single level of the modern day. Even though I can easily counter it with the fire plants, I still respect such a serious enemy. On day 6, we had to grind 4000 suns, which gave me a fantastic opportunity to play the level in the way it's meant to be beaten. Without the sun deficit, I was able to plant everything I wanted to, and of course my choice fell in placing a column of infernos combined with meteor flowers. These fire plants were incredibly effective and the level was beaten much faster than I expected. As a result, I had to dig up lots of plants to grind the needed amount of sun, allowing the zombies to consume lots of sun shrooms together with hot dates. Day 7 was just a ridiculous zombie spam and nothing more than that, since 90% of the level was dedicated to some of the most annoying zombies, which appeared simultaneously. What were the PopCap developers thinking about while creating such a dumb level? Because it's even worse than the Jurassic Marsh, which has some of the worst levels in the game. It's not a big problem to beat such a level, but I didn't enjoy a single second of it, since the real hardness lies in a good zombie combinations rather than spamming the worst enemies on one level. Mr. Floppa wouldn't approve such a level. Day 8 was a 3 in a row minigame, so there's a good chance to tell you something interesting. Did you know that an elephant's trunk has over 150,000 muscles on it? To put it into perspective, our body has approximately 840 muscles. When a baby elephant is born, it's pretty clumsy and it doesn't know how to use its trunk. It takes around 8 months for a newborn to learn how to use its trunk properly. Thank you so much for your attention. On day 9, we had to survive the zombie attack with only shadow plants, which means that the fire plants are not the same on that level. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of number 9, so skipping it would be the right choice. Day 10 contained even more fast-moving zombies, which wasn't fun at all, since I had to deal not only with some easy enemies like Discotrons, but also with the prehistoric zombie, which is a big fan of cobblestones and Ooga Booga. Guys, I don't have enough suns to deal with all of you, especially if it comes to the Primal Garg, which is by far the toughest Gargantuar in the game, and all I have to stop him is a few fire plants. Nevertheless, we managed to survive to the final wave and defeat the Robo-Garg with the help of the Lone Mover. So, because of the Perspector zombie, day 11 was beaten with the help of the Wasabi Whip, which is capable of slashing the zombies from both sides, so none of them can easily get to my spicy friend. The addition of Piano Man to this level is still a huge mystery, as there are no zombies from the Wild West who would dance while listening to his melody. Not even a Tintin Man is a fan of his music, which tells us a lot about his musical abilities. I've started thinking that Piano Man is a local Squidward, as no one likes his melodies. Day 12 was much easier than expected, as Inferno is yet another great option to deal with imp dragons, which are now stuck at the beginning of the lone. Moreover, it allowed me to group even more zombies, so the spicy flame of the hot date has fried even more zombies at once. Oh, and I don't really know what the hell has happened with my jack-o'-lantern, which at first defeated the Gork and then it simply disappeared. Our pumpkin friend reminded me of a man on a mission who did his task and then went away. Impressive for such a fabulous pumpkin. Day 13 featured a 3-in-a-row minigame, which is by far one of my favorites in PvZ2. Even though this level has no connection to our challenge, it feels special to me because the essence of my challenge lies in levels like this one. I'm honestly shocked that it has been almost 3 months since I started this challenge, and now we are finishing it. Moments like this one feels pretty special, as I understand that all the efforts I put into it are going to become a long movie in a few days. It's a great feeling. I like it because people enjoy what I do and appreciate every moment of this challenge. That makes me feel really happy. On day 14 we had to survive the zombie attack with only shadow plants, so I suggest skipping it, as it told you lots of interesting stuff right before it. On day 15 I had to protect a few primal cobblestones from being eaten by zombies. To my surprise, the enemy list on this level was pretty poor, and the imp cannon from the piracies has impressed me, as I couldn't expect to see it at this point. There was literally only one tough zombie at this level, and it was the classical Gork, which appeared on the middle lane that didn't have any cobblestones. Sometimes I can't really understand the logic of PopCap developers who made some of the first levels much tougher than all we witness right now. Nevertheless, let's continue to enjoy this game. So, after defeating the final zombie, we received a taco. It can't be serious. I'm sure it's a trap. Look, Penny, my taco! No, user Dave, you must not. I detect high levels of trappiness. But hungry. Chow, taco! Like I said, it was a trap. Day 16 was a pretty interesting conveyor belt level, featuring only gargantures and plans that aim to defeat them. On the one hand, it's a cool and unique challenge, since there are no similar levels to this one. Still, on the other hand, it destroys the reputation of Gargantua as a dangerous enemy, for which you have to prepare only the best defense, since the giant zombie is seen as a killing machine. You have probably understood that I'm not a big fan of the modern day, as I find it a bad ending of the game. In my opinion, the concept of the final world should be different, and the zombie list should be way larger than it currently is. The only strong side of the modern day is the shadow plants, a cool concept that represents a new plant family with interesting abilities. However, the rest of the world isn't so great, and I wouldn't recommend replaying it over and over. With that being said, let's move to the second part of the modern day. Day 17 didn't feature anything new, but at least the zombie combinations were much better than they used to be in the first part. If you think something is going wrong on your lawn, just place the peppermint and all of your problems will be solved in 5 seconds. However, don't do that so often, as the game would become too dull and repetitive. Oh yeah, that's my favorite moment of the entire level. I remember day 18 for introducing a bull zombie in the modern day, which is in fact a dangerous enemy considering its fast pace and agile nature. It's hard to believe that a zombie from the Wild West can become a serious enemy in this world, but it is what it is. Despite losing a few lone movers, the level was completed and my brain became relaxed. Day 19 was a strange conveyor belt level, as it combined plans from prehistory with the plans from the far future. Sounds reasonable. Oh, and we even received a coconut cannon from the piracies, which honestly made the timeline even stranger. Nevertheless, it's an optional level, so I don't care about its existence. Day 20 was a perfect opportunity to play with a wasabi whip, and of course, I couldn't miss such a chance. These sun tiles, which are placed at the beginning of the lawn, became my primary sun source, all of which I spent on putting even more wasabi whips. So technically, wasabi whips were producing suns to place even more wasabi whips. Oh, what an effective zero-waste production! Everything was going so fast that 99% of the zombies were defeated in the first 2 minutes, and the third minute was spent on dealing with the primal Garg. Big boy needs lots of fire to be defeated. Day 21 has finally featured the All-Star Zombie, which is one of the most dangerous enemies we have ever faced in this challenge. Unlike other zombies, it is capable of destroying Inferno while the plant is reloading, so we should be really cautious when the football zombie enters the lone. Sometimes there are so many different enemies on the lone that not even Inferno is capable of stopping them all, so the rest of the fire plants are becoming more useful than they ever were. Day 22 featured a 3-in-a-row minigame, so I had a few minutes to relax and think about the experience I gained while beating the modern day and the rest of the worlds. The fire challenge taught me to always keep an eye on everything that is happening on the lone and sometimes play as fast as possible to trigger the next wave, so even if you are not capable of dealing with all the zombies, the lone movers will do the rest of the work for you. Also, I learned a valuable lesson about dealing with all kinds of zombies and even developed some new strategies for dealing with old enemies. Overall, I think that this challenge was valuable not only for me, but for all of you, my fellow ice cubes. Day 23 became a total mess as lots of annoying zombies appeared on that level and I couldn't do anything against them, since most of the time my meteor flowers were covered with an awful octopus. The only thing I could do in this situation was of course to use the peppermints to deal with all the zombies that were obsessed with the idea of getting my brain at any cost. Unfortunately for them, the level was completed and my brain was saved once again. Day 24 contained a 200 IQ moment at the end of the level, when I managed to defeat the All-Star Zombie that was 2 steps away from getting to the house and consuming my brain. Still, a jalapeno pepper became my victory ticket, which saved the lone from a total collapse. Put a like on this video for such a great move. Day 25 was an interesting conveyor belt level which contained only carrots. It's interesting to find out that such an idea was used too late and we've got only one level of that type, which is pretty sad, because this plant has appeared in the Neon Mixtape Tour, and since then we haven't seen any good level up until now. The intensive carrot could become a great plant if only the PopCap developers made it a bit better than we've got in a game. Day 26 wasn't an interesting one, as I don't find zombie spam a necessary thing to talk about. I can always tell you a fascinating story of how I saved enough suns to plant a full column of infernos and then countered all the enemies you see on the screen with his help. But let's be honest, no one is interested in that type of scene, and neither am I. Day 27 once again featured 3-in-a-row minigames, so that's a great chance to tell you something interesting. Did you know that Modern Day was released almost 10 years ago? In February 2026, this world will celebrate its 10th anniversary, and I still can't believe that we haven't seen a new world since then. When Modern Day was released, I was 12, and now I'm 22. Life is going at an insanely fast pace. On day 28, we had to gather 3000 suns, so I found nothing better than beating this level using firey together with torchwood, as the last time I used them was on a big wave beach. My first attempt failed because I was playing too fast. On my second attempt, I needed a few more seconds to gather an additional 25 suns, but the game didn't want to cooperate with me. On the third attempt, I finally succeeded with only torchwoods, leaving no lone movers in the yard. Day 29 was an easy one, and even the imp dragons couldn't stop me from enjoying it. Even though I had no plans in the lone, I was still succeeding in frying the zombies, as most of them ended up being fried like a KFC chicken. The final wave introduced a few Gargs from ancient Egypt, but even they couldn't change the situation you see on your screens. Neither of them could resist the superior power of the fire plants. Day 30 remains a nightmare for me, as I spent over an hour trying to beat that level repeatedly without success. To understand how hard it is, you should never forget that I struggled to complete it even with a few columns of sun shrooms. After numerous attempts and failures, I finally reached the final wave, and only then did I realize that the level is unbeatable with only fire plants, as I've got nothing to counter 3 gargantuars simultaneously. This is the first and the only impossible level of the modern day, and if you manage to beat it on your own, please let me know in the comments below the way you did it, because I have tried literally everything to complete it. Day 31 was one of the easiest levels of the modern day, and I'm not even joking. I still can't find the logic in making such an easy level at the end of the journey, especially since we're just one step away from finishing the adventure mode, and you're giving me this. That's not serious at all. Anyway, that's not my problem, so let's move to the final levels of our time adventure. Days 32, 33 and 34 were spent fighting with Dr. Zombies. I'm not a big fan of these levels, as I find them a bad ending for the adventure mode. Fortunately or not, they didn't contain enough fire plants to attempt beating zombies with only them, so we are going to skip all of these levels. However, after beating day 34, we finally got a taco with a waffle in it. It's even better than one we consumed some time ago. David, I implore you, you must give up your hopeless dream of a long ago taco. It is gone forever. But please, in its place, take this. Oh, is that a taco with a waffle in it? I detect high level of deliciousness, user Dave. This is the greatest day in my or anybody else's life. Bon appetit, Crazy Dave. So there are no more levels to play or keys to achieve, which means that PvZ2 was successfully beaten with only fire plants. I hope you enjoyed it, because I really did. It was an amazing experience, and I hope you will try it on your own, because fire plants are a fantastic plant group in PvZ2. There are so many of them that you can create numerous strategies for beating various worlds in our time adventure. However, it's not the final challenge on my channel, as many of you have requested to continue this series, so the next time adventure will be dedicated to another plant group. As we approach the holidays, you can suggest what type of challenge will be next. It is going to be the fourth and the final challenge of 2025, and I still hope to reach 25,000 subscribers by December 31st, 2025. Also, don't forget about sponsorships, as they are a fantastic way to support me. Now I'm working on some of the following videos, so wait for them all. Sincerely, your Iceberg.